everyone. Welcome to our very first travel talk of 2022. I am super excited to chat with you guys today about kind of what we see for travel in 2022. What are our travel trends? How are travel protocols going to keep you guys healthy and safe as you go back out into the world? And sort of what the dynamic of travel is right now. So I'm going to start off at the top, and as you guys pop in, give us a wave, let us know you're here, and then if you have questions, drop them in the comments. We're going to try to keep, well, I'm going to try to keep track of everybody's questions so that I can answer those as we go. So I just want to start off at the top by saying that today's conversation is going to include a lot of information about the COVID-19 vaccine, masking, and testing. So these are the protocols that we are going to have to live with based on the countries that we're traveling to, the vendors that we're working with. We at Travel Brilliant and I myself have zero control over the protocols and requirements when it comes to COVID health and safety. So with that being said, we are not going to keep any comments in this thread that say anything negative about testing, masks, or vaccines, simply because it's not productive. There's nothing we can do about what the protocols are. So having those conversations here in the comments isn't going to be productive to helping you guys travel. If you have personal concerns about any of that, certainly reach out to us individually and we can help you sort of navigate the situation. So again, we're going to keep those out of the comments because we're just going to talk about what the protocols are. And again, we don't have any control of those, but I want you guys, oh my goodness, I want you guys to be educated. So let me just adjust my little tripod here. I almost lost you guys. There we go. All right, so we are going to jump into that. As we know right now, we're going into this new year of travel, and we still do have many protocols in place for COVID health and safety. So the first thing that you guys do need to know for international travel to almost every destination, you are going to need a COVID vaccine, a proof of vaccination. There are a few destinations that don't require that, but the vast majority of international travel is going to require that you be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and that you show proof of vaccination. So that is something really important to consider as we move into the year, right? And when it comes to our travel insurance, which is something that we really, really encourage every traveler to purchase, simply not wanting to get a vaccine when it's available at this point in time is not a coverable reason to cancel your trip for travel insurance. So, like I said before, there's nothing that we can do to control the customs and immigrations process and the COVID vaccine protocols for foreign countries. So just know that if you are hoping to travel internationally in 2020, that many and most of those countries are going to require that you are fully vaccinated. The second step to that is going to be your COVID testing. So some countries also require, in addition to that proof of vaccination, a negative COVID test for entry. And depending on the country, it's usually about 72 hours is what we're seeing as kind of the standard. So about 3 days before your arrival to that country, you need to show a negative COVID test. Whether it's a PCR or an antigen is going to vary, but from country to country. So we have all of that information when you book with us, what those requirements are. So many countries, in addition to the vaccine, proof of vaccination, they are also requiring a negative COVID test for entry. And in some countries, you may also just get randomly rapid tested upon arrival. They are pulling out travelers even with proof of your negative test and your vaccine. They may still do additional random screening. So those are important things to know when you're planning your trip, that those are expenses in terms of the rapid testing or the testing pre-travel that you need to be factoring into your budget. It's also important just in terms of timing and logistics that you have that in the back of your mind, that for most destinations you're going to have to also test. You will also need at this point in time a return test to come back to the United States. So for my folks that are traveling by cruise ship, all-inclusive resorts, most of our escorted tours, that is going to be part of that package. When you travel, they will include that test. There are some situations like our Rocky Mountaineer. Rocky Mountaineer does not include the test, but they give you the resources in your departure city to get the test. And we know testing is a little bit easier in Canada, especially in Alberta. So there's more availability in general. Is what we're hearing from our partners there. Now, if you're in Alberta and you've heard something different, certainly let us know, but this is what we're hearing from our partners there. So just be aware that, again, if you need to test for your return to the United States, probably don't schedule an excursion to be gone the whole day. Say, for example, if you're at a resort or on a cruise, because you want to make sure that you have that test in hand. Many international airports also have rapid testing on site. So I know one of my travelers just experienced this. They had to do the rapid test in the Cancun airport. It worked out fine. I do know in Calgary, which is where we're coming back from our big Rocky Mountaineer trip, they do it there as well in the airport. So those are the things that we have to just be aware of as we move into 2022. We are not, at least for the next year, going to go back to pre-COVID. There's no like going back to what it was before. We are going to live with this, and there's going to be extra steps to travel. Vaccines, testing, and masking. So indoor locations, just assume that in most places you visit, you're going to have to wear a mask indoors. Everybody's, risk tolerance is different. If you do not feel comfortable taking your mask off, even if it's allowed, certainly leave it on. You should do what makes you feel comfortable. And that's the important thing in all of this. I am giving you guys the resources to make educated decisions about your travel. Everybody's risk tolerance is going to be different, that what you feel comfortable doing. So I will say, keeping that in mind, we do need to kind of put it into perspective. We work with countries all around the world, and at this point in time, almost every country is at level 3 or 4. That includes the United States. So, and I'm not trying to tell you guys that you should go to Cancun and go to an all-inclusive resort, but, the risk is pretty similar home, unless you're a person who's not going out at all. If you're not doing any restaurants, which is absolutely, I know some people who are not comfortable going to restaurants, going to the store, and those kind of things because of their health situation or their friends and family and their health situations. But again, know that all of these people are doing their very, very best to keep you safe when you travel. And there's no guarantees with anything, but we're here to help you make the best decisions. And just know that these COVID mandates are going to keep us safe, and they're going to stay with us at least through 2022 and probably even into 2023. We are living in a world now where COVID is part of our lives. So, and again, if you guys have questions, drop them in the comments, and I'm happy to answer anything more specific. What I also wanted to talk to you guys about is the importance of, and I think this is the biggest thing that travel agents and travel agencies are offering right now. We've always done this, but I think it's even more important that we have these resources now. We have personal relationships on the ground with the tour operators and the DMCs, so our destination management companies. That means Travel Brilliant, we sell travel across the globe to every corner of the world that you could want to go to, from Budapest to Antarctica. and everything in between. It is our job when you book a trip with us to be as informed as possible, but we're never going to know every single detail of every single destination and what's going on with their COVID testing protocols and all of those things at any given moment. So we really rely on our fantastic DMCs, our destination management companies and tour operators who we have personal relationships with. They are the boots on the ground in that destination, whether it's Costa Rica, whether it's Vienna, right? We are able to talk to them and say, I have folks that are looking to do this. What do you suggest right now? And then as we get closer to your departure, we check in with our partners. What's going on? Has anything changed? Is there anything that we need to make sure that our clients are aware of? What are your thoughts on X, Y, and Z? And these kind of questions that you may have, we can ask to people who are actually physically in that destination that you are going to. The great news is while we stay here, I'm here in Western New York. If you're in Italy, my contact in Italy is there to help you through the process if anything happens or changes while you're on your trip. And they're in constant communication with me. So that does a couple things. It helps you actually have a good time on your vacation because there is a network of people who are helping to make sure that everything about your trip goes off without a hitch. I don't want you to have any travel issues. They don't want you to have any travel issues. We want you to post fantastic Facebook photos and Instagram pictures and TikToks and have the best time, or not do any of that if you don't want to use social media, but come back and rave to your friends about the amazing vacation that you had. And that's what we do. We work as a network. I work with those people on the ground in those destinations. I have folks everywhere, and they have not only become very good business partners, but very good friends who I visit and see when I go to those destinations myself. So I think those are all really important things for you guys to kind of understand about what's happening as we move into travel. And I think it's really important that you guys are educated travelers. So the next thing I want to kind of talk about, and I'm going to take a little sip of water. So if you guys have a question, please drop them in the comments. Okay, so let's move on. A really hot topic right now is cruising. So cruising globally restarted in June. And since then, we've had over 700,000 people travel on cruise ships across the globe. The cruise ship protocols for health and safety blow away any other health and safety protocols by far. So, is cruising 100% risk-free? No. Nothing in our world right now is 100% risk-free, and that's unfortunate, but that's where we are. Is cruising probably the safest? Yes. And I know some of you guys might cringe when I say that because I know that there's like kind of this traditional thought that cruising is like a petri dish, but especially now, most of our cruise lines have vaccine requirements. So I'm going to repeat that. And again, if you don't want to get the vaccine, that is your choice, but cruising is going to be out. Vaccinations. And that's what, even though there's certain parameters where we might not need to have a vaccine, I'm saying 100% cruising needs a vaccine because at any moment, those cruise lines could change the protocol. So if you're unvaccinated, cruising is going to be out for the next year, probably. Vaccine requirements. So that means that they have the highest percentage of vaccinated travelers aboard their ships. Now, obviously, our really young kids who do not have vaccine approval yet do not fall into those parameters. But should those vaccines become available, they are going to be included. So, vaccine requirements, pre-cruise testing requirements. So not only do you have to get a test before you show up to the cruise port to board your cruise, you are also, in many cases, rapid tested at the cruise port before you board the ship. There is also periodic testing aboard the ship. So if you exhibit any signs of illness, you will get a test while you're cruising aboard that ship. Some of the ports are going to require a test. So assume that there's going to be the potential of testing during the duration of your cruise, and then obviously that test to re-enter the United States. So all of the cruise ships have updated their health and safety standards, their filtration systems, their testing, their vaccination protocols. There's areas of the ship that are designed specifically to house any passengers who have a positive COVID test while they're cruising. So there's a resource, it's called Royal Caribbean Blog. It is not run by Royal Caribbean, it's run by some fans of Royal Caribbean, and somebody did a first-hand account of what it was like to test positive aboard one of their sailings. They talked about the room, the health and safety protocols that they underwent. Now know that every cruise ship also has emergency medical staff. They have a hospital on board. So in this case, obviously he was fully vaccinated. His symptoms were very mild. He did have to isolate, but Royal Caribbean obviously took care of him, and they offered him a future cruise credit to come back for another sailing because he wasn't able to partake in the sailing that he had COVID. And so I definitely encourage you guys to read that account because I thought it was really insightful as to, you know, how they contact trace and support any guests who do have COVID or test positive for COVID while they're on board the ship. So again, nothing is going to be 100% risk-free, and you guys all have to know your personal risk tolerance to know if you're comfortable cruising. But I will say that if we took cruising, you know, as a whole, and we used that as a measure against any state in the US, cruising as a whole would blow away any state in the US by far in terms of its health and safety, in terms of the numbers and the statistics of people who are testing positive on board. So of course we're hearing about that. And of course you're putting yourself in a situation where you are around other people. But again, their health and safety protocol is very strict and really kind of blows away any other vacationing protocol. So that's cruising. And cruising has really come back. I obviously was not booking cruises for most of 2021 and 2022, but starting in September, it's been like the second most popular type of vacation that we've booked here at Travel Brilliant. A lot of river cruises going in the summer. River cruising is a beautiful way to see a lot of destinations in Europe because you have to remember many of those major cities are going to be built along waterways because those were easy ways historically to move goods around on those waterways. So you're taking your gorgeous luxury hotel with you to every destination. And river cruising is much more inclusive than ocean cruising. And when I say that, I mean like amenities inclusive. So alcohol, excursions, all of those things are most often included in your river cruise fare. So there's not a lot of extras that you usually have to think about when you're booking that vacation. A lot of Mediterranean cruises as well, a lot of especially Eastern Mediterranean, which is very interesting. So going to, and I absolutely understand this, and they're beautiful destinations, and they're destinations that are not as heavily visited in terms of tourism. So Montenegro, Slovenia, Croatia, I'm trying to think off the top. So a lot of that, like Eastern Mediterranean, a lot of the smaller Greek islands are very, very popular right now. And again, you're going to have lower capacity on those ships. You're going to have less people getting off at those ports than you would at, say, like Barcelona, for example. So those are really, really great options, and those have been very, very popular. Shockingly, I have not seen Alaskan cruises come back yet. So much of Europe, river cruises, Mediterranean have been very, very popular. Caribbean is always popular, but Alaska had always been top 5 for many years, and that has not quite bounced back. So I'm actually going to be working with Norwegian Cruise Line to see if we can do a cool option for their Alaskan itineraries. So stay posted for that. So again, when we talk about health and safety protocols, I know that everybody's, risk tolerance are different, but cruising in terms of the travel industry has the highest health and safety protocols right now. So trends, we were going into trends. So cruising obviously like really, really rebounded. Our other trends always, we're seeing a lot of family travel, a lot of family vacations popping back up, especially since we saw the approval for the vaccine from those kiddos 5 to 11. Disney is going into a little bit of a lull. So this week through like the first or second week of February, we do get a little bit of a lull in Disney travel, meaning that the parks tend to be low attendance. It does tend to be a little bit cooler, which isn't terrible, especially if you're used to going to Walt Disney World in the summer where it can be brutally hot. Universal has been really, really popular. And for the first time, Universal vacations for the spring have outpaced our Disney vacations. And that's very, very interesting to me. So, because usually Disney is like king when it comes to those family vacations, but Universal Studios has really been outpacing. And I can tell you my son is 8 and he's been going to Disney every single year since he was like 2. And he's really switched to be a big Universal fan. It's a different feel. So I always say Universal is an amusement park. First and foremost, it's about those rides and the ride experiences. Where Walt Disney World is a theme park. It's about the immersion into those worlds and that IP that Disney holds. And the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is probably like the best when it comes to merging both the idea of an amusement park, because those rides are amazing, and a theme park. The immersive experience, especially for me, of walking into Diagon Alley, is just, if you are a fan of those stories, walking into Diagon Alley for the first time, that reveal is like breathtaking. It really is. It's magical. It's all of those things. And as an adult in my mid-40s, I turn into a kid in that land. And if you're there at nighttime, it has an entirely different feel, and you see things in the park, details in that land that you don't notice during the day. And if you go over to Hogsmeade, they have the Death Eaters out at night, they're very menacing and very well done. And they have the Dark Arts Castle show. So it really is a great marriage of those two things. So for the first time in a long time, Universal is really outpacing Disney for our family vacations, which is really interesting. So the right family for Universal is if your kids are 42 inches or taller. So there's no real age where I would say, okay, Universal is the place to go. But most of the rides, you're going to need to be at least 42 inches to ride. So if you've got lots of little kids, of course we have Seuss Landing in some of those areas, but the vast majority of the rides, 42 inches or taller. The other thing is, at Universal, they do have, if you're looking for a splurge, a VIP tour experience that is actually really reasonable. I think it runs about $125 a person, and you get a VIP tour. You get an excellent tour guide. You get breakfast and lunch. They pretty much walk you onto each ride that you want to ride. And so we did that on our last trip in May, and we rode literally every single ride, and we walked 10 miles between the two parks. It was fantastic. So what other trends are we seeing? Adventure travel. Adventure travel, that idea of that bucket list travel still hasn't gone away. It's still very popular. Right now I'm seeing a lot of Peru requests, a lot of Galapagos requests. Those are really, really big right now. And a lot of Finland, Lapland, and sort of the northern Europe. So Iceland was king for a long time. But I think especially as people started to realize those glass igloos that you see that look gorgeous and amazing and like all worthy are coming from Finland and Lapland, and that's a really cool experience. So that's been there. And then again, South America, Peru, Machu Picchu, Galapagos Islands have been really popular. But also like niche travel has been really popular. I think people who have, you know, special interests, you know, we talk about our comfort characters, that would make sense. You know, things that we've been either remembering in terms of our favorite movies from childhood, like The Goonies, or books that we've read, things like that. So like Bridgerton themed tours, a lot of food travel. I think a lot of us went back into the kitchen during this time. So those have all been really, really popular. So adventure travel, cruising, obviously family travel. And yeah, so what else do we need to, okay, so we talked about health and safety protocols, we talked about cruising, we talked about some trends. Again, if you guys have questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. If you're watching this later today, and you have a question, certainly drop them in the comments. We always kind of monitor those to see if there's anything that we can answer. If you have like one-on-one questions, we're always here. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is destination weddings. It's destination wedding season. So, kind of that holidays time of year, that, you know, November, December, January into February, a lot of engagements happen. It's kind of the most popular time to get engaged. And destination weddings are a really great opportunity for you to think about how you're going to include your friends and family in a safe way. So, couple pros. One, unlike a traditional wedding where you have one day, you wake up super, super early that morning, you get ready with your hair and makeup team or with your groomsmen, then you show up to the church or whatever destination it is or location that you're going to take your vows, and then you take a whole bunch of photos, and then you go to the venue for the reception and everybody wants to say hi, and then suddenly this like day that you've planned for a year or more is over. Right? And I hear a lot of brides say, oh my God, I actually cried after the wedding was over because I had spent so much time planning it and it was done. So destination weddings are a really great option to include people that really matter to you. So especially if you're struggling with a huge list that you're trying to narrow down, that can help because you have to, with a destination wedding, people are going to have to travel there. But you also typically have 3 to 4 days with your guests, not just your wedding day, which the resort or wherever we're having it is going to take care of. They're going to just pluck all that off of your hands, and they're just going to take care of it for you, right? They're going to do all of the things. And it's all in-house, whether it's a resort or a beautiful villa or wherever it is that you are envisioning your destination wedding happening. They're going to take all of that planning like out of your hands because they're going to do it all. They're going to be a one-stop shop, which is amazing, right? But you're going to have that day, but then you're going to have maybe the day before when everybody's arriving, you might have a smaller, more intimate, like beach cocktail party. The day after, right, you guys might just relax at the pool together. You might take your guests on a sail on a catamaran, like depending on, you know, how many activities that you want to have, but you get several days to actually experience with your friends and family. And then when they leave, you're already in a beautiful location for your honeymoon. So it's really kind of a really nice opportunity. But in terms of health and safety, if you're traveling someplace that's going to require vaccines for entry testing, we know that everybody who's coming to your wedding is going to have to go through that protocol of making sure that they have their vaccine and making sure that they have been tested for COVID-19. So it's certainly a very safe situation. Again, I will always say as a caveat, there's no 100% guarantee, but it adds additional layers of health and safety for you and your guests when you have a destination wedding. And if you do it at an all-inclusive resort, oftentimes there's a lot of freebies that the resorts give to you, depending on how many guests that you bring down for your wedding. So it can be really cost-effective too for you as a bride and groom. It's great for you know, our older couples, I don't want to say older because I would fall into that category, but maybe couples who are having a second wedding, couples who already have children, and things like that, where it becomes a bigger celebration with your family than that one day. So destination weddings, also same-sex destination weddings have become extremely popular. So that is something we can help you with. Let's see, is there anything else on my list? So that's really all I had. The last thing I wanted to touch on was travel insurance. So we are going to recommend to you, no matter where you're going in the world, that you purchase travel insurance. There's a lot of different travel insurance suppliers out there. We have access to a few. We often recommend Allianz. It's my preferred travel insurance provider just because I find them the easiest to work with when my clients do have claims. It's important to know that if there is a vaccination requirement for your trip and you are making the choice to not be vaccinated, that is not a coverable reason under travel insurance. So again, it's not something that we can argue about or debate about. That's just the way it is. So, but it is really important. These travel insurance providers are covering COVID-19. Prior to this, there was kind of a pandemic clause where they didn't cover those, but now we want to get you back out in the world. So we want to make sure that we're going to cover those things that you are most concerned about. So if you or an immediate family member tests positive before COVID-19, before you travel, and that prevents you from traveling, obviously that's a covered reason. If you test positive while you're traveling for COVID-19 and there are additional travel expenses, that will fall under your travel delay portion of the policy. So you will be covered. There is a daily maximum amount that you'll be covered, but you know, any additional hotels, changes in flight fees, and those kind of things will be covered. And obviously, and I think it's hugely important, not just for COVID, but in general, that emergency medical evacuation is critical. So this is kind of an across the board. If you are in the Bahamas and you are having a cardiac issue and you need to get back to the States, those medical flights can cost upwards of $100,000. So those are covered. Emergency medical evacuation is a huge perk and has been and was used and will continue to be used outside of COVID-19. So I think it's really important that you consider travel insurance as a necessary part of your travel plans. Even if we get past COVID-19 and it's no longer front of mind as something we have to consider as we travel. So that is all I have for you guys today, and I will see you real soon. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. You can always reach out to us. And have a fantastic day. Bye, guys.